I want to thank you very much for letting me do my 12th podcast under Jesus Social Hours, Romans7.org. Please look at our webpage. It's on an affordability quest to build affordable parks all throughout the United States on 40-acre parcels, 360 units. We're committed to that. But this is very special to me to give these books of the Bible, starting with the Old Testament naturally, sharing the message of God and Jesus. So we'll go ahead and get started with the book of Esther, and that's going to be the 17th book of the Bible. And as we look at it, we're going to be seeing something very, very, very special. And it's going to take place in 486-465 BC from the Persian king. He had empire from India all the way to Ethiopia. And his name is King Ahasuerus, Ahasuerus. He's a Persian king, so that means that he had to overthrow King Nebuchadnezzar, down in Bethlehem. And he threw a feast for 140 days. It's like a 4-month-long alcohol-induced feast for everybody in his kingdom at the Shinar, palace. And in this feast with all these men and princes and dukes and whoever all these royal official people are, the king, and incidentally this king, in the Greek name of him is first Xerxes, and that's what we'll call him. It's in the Greek books, and he had a dynasty, and he lasted about 20 years, and apparently his son assassinated him, and they had this quest of trying to invade Greece, but that's another story. Back to this feast for 140 days, it ended up being something very, very special in a biblical standpoint. The king Zacharias said, "Bring Queen Vashti forward," and she refused, and it was banished by the king, would set up the hunt for the next queen that saved the Jewish race, and that had been Queen Esther. And that's what we're talking about right now as far as the book of Esther. Esther was daughter of Abiha, and uncle is Mordecai. And the drama of the book of Esther is Haman. He's a high court official, and Mordecai will not bow down to him. Now, Haman is enemy of the Jews. Then he uses his influence to get a royal decree to destroy all Jews in the circular area. Now Esther, when she was elected as the next queen, she petitions the king, and mainly to save her uncle and the Jewish race. And then the king looks at the Persian chronicles about who Mordecai faithfulness, and finds out his faithfulness, and look in the court records, and then he sees that he saved the king's life with 2 assassins. So he orders a reprieve. Then Esther pleads for her people and her life because she's a Jew. And then the Jews, every year, they celebrate as Purim, Purim. And then the story unfolds that Haman is ordered destroyed. His 10 sons are ordered to be hanged in the gallows that he had on her uncle, and 500 are killed just in the palace alone. And all Jews celebrate not being destroyed, and then out their whole kingdom in India all the way to Ethiopia, which is huge. It's like the area of the United States, all provinces. Then the Jews take vengeance on the traitors who are trying to kill them. But in the book of Esther, The lessons that we learn, and that's what I do, is not so much the books of the Bible, but try to understand what each of these books are trying to tell us. Vashti, the queen, when she was ordered to appear at the feast, she refused. We're seeing God looking down and coming into the control of kings and how they think. And through different research, different Jewish chronicles, Jewish texts, that is not necessarily in the Bible, then it's like anything, you have to research and search your own Holy Spirit and get the values, what you find is true. And what I find is true is that God looked down and he gave Vashti, Queen Vashti, leprosy, because she was a princess, probably the Babylonian Empire, Persian Empire, and so she would not cared what happened to do one way or the other. And to save the Jewish people, God gave her leprosy, and that is why she wouldn't show up at the feast, because these kings, they would order her to take her clothes off and look how beautiful she was. So she didn't show up because of vanity. She showed up because God, cursed her and gave her leprosy to remove her as king. So we see God interviewing in various ways, and then he directs matters so Vashti could be disposed and Esther would reign in her place and save the Jewish people. Now, leprosy is used to show God's power over illness and is signified punishment for disobedience. We've seen it used before. Number one, we've seen it in Moses' hands, Exodus, demonstrating God's power and convincing Moses to act as leaders. We've seen it, number two, in the sister of Moses, Miriam, and for her punishment of challenging Moses' authority in Exodus, banished 7 days so she continue on. And we've seen in number three, King Uzziah, Uzziah. We've seen it used against him because he was decided to do priestly duties along with his king duties, and then God cursed him with leprosy. And then our beloved Jesus, we see him cure leprosy in his followers. So leprosy represents sin, separation, spiritual impurity, and needs spiritual cleansing and restoration. And the book of Esther is a testimony of God changing history and power over kings to protect his chosen people, and using simple, wonderful people like Esther and her uncle Mordecai, his name, I'm not spelling it right, Mordecia, to further his plan for all of us. This is what the book of Esther is about, and the Jews throughout history celebrate each year, as I mentioned, the book of Purim, as I mentioned. So it's not just so simple of a narrative, historical narrative of a new queen, a young lady, but it's the book of Esther is about how God uses simple people, not famous people, not rich people, and to further his plan. And God, every year, even in 2025, in our own personal lives, he orchestrates events to teach us, and so we follow his way, so we know sin and we can ask for forgiveness. So that is what I learned from the book of Esther. Now, next week, we'll be doing the book of Job, or Job, J-O-B, and it'll be a lot more detailed because the book of Job is they think it's probably one of the oldest texts in the Old Testament, and it's about disease and being thrown down, and then how he never forgets God and he blesses God then eventually God restores them sevenfold. So that's what I pretty well learned on the book of Esther, and then we'll look next week on the 13th podcast I do, which will be the 18th book of the Bible, Old Testament, and then we'll take it from there again. And please, there again, look at Romans7.org and look at my podcast, and then please give me an email, give me support, and then donations are appreciated. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.